So I thought we left this back in June. I guess not. And it is so wild to me how obvious being a pedophile is now. I get that the world is moving in a new direction, a direction that scares the hell out of me, but a new direction nonetheless. And there's like a bunch of stuff that doesn't make sense. Like I saw this one, God, the ACLU. I mean, they never cease to amaze me. I saw this tweet from them. They said, breaking, we're suing Tennessee for their aggravated prostitution statute that targets people with HIV with harsh punishment and lifetime sex offender registration. This law is unconstitutional and disproportionately affects black and transgender women. Obviously, the fallback to further your point is to say that it disproportionately affects black people. And they said the law elevates engaging in sex work from a misdemeanor to a felony based on someone's HIV status, which is a protected disability. And that basically means that the ACLU wants it to not be a crime to knowingly spread HIV because more black and trans people have it. And that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. It's just an example of how crazy the world is moving. I mean, I guess it could be on the same lines if we're talking about a bunch of weird-ass sex demons who want to, like, prey on a bunch of people who can't properly defend themselves or just do whatever it is that they want with no consequences. But ever since there's been a rise in progressivism, I think that's the word, I've seen a bunch of, like, sex books and, like, what I would call like porn books in schools for like kids to read. Now, how we got here is a natural process, but at least in my experience, I didn't really learn much about that until I want to say 7th grade. And the teaching on it was very specific to ensure that me as how old was I? Maybe like 12, and then a bunch of other 11 and 12-year-olds weren't overly exposed to a bunch of stuff that we shouldn't be at that age, because then you're crossing into the line of being a pedophile, which we had a bunch of teachers who were, which is why stuff like what I'm about to show you is a really big no-no, right? And there's some irony in here, which makes this situation even crazier. But before I talk about it, take about a minute, some change, and watch this, because apparently this is the direction that the world is going in, and people are starting to get fed up with it.
This book here, it's called It's Perfectly Normal. I'll read some of this for you. It says, after a bit, a person's becomes moist and slippery, and the clitoris becomes hard. After a bit, a person's becomes erect, stiff, and larger. Sometimes a bit of clear fluid that may contain a few sperm comes out of the tip of the and makes it wet.
Can we, sir, I'm sorry.
Was it something I said? If you don't want to hear it in a school board meeting, why should children be able to check it out of the school system? We have perverts that are perverting our kids. And you all sit back smug in your chairs, but you don't want me to read it. Why? Does it bother you? Yes or no? You can't answer that question. You want to know why? Because politically speaking, you can't say that it's wrong. And you don't want me to read the filth because it exposes the truth. How dare you tell me to stop reading it? If you don't want to hear it, why should the children have to see it?
Pastor, your time is up. Thank you.
That makes 2 of us.
So the irony in that is that this is a meeting with a bunch of adults, and it's an adult reading a book that is available for kids to read, and then the other adults on the board are like, hey, don't read that, right? We're in a meeting and that's not appropriate. How the hell does that make any kind of sense if it's a book that is available for kids with the description that's in the book about certain aspects of sexual activity, as well as pictures to show kids what the deal is? This book is titled It's Perfectly Normal, yet as an adult, you're not allowed to read it in a school board meeting in the presence of other adults. I don't get it. I really, really don't get it. And when I say it's crazy the direction the world is moving in, I don't say that lightly. I mean it with every fiber in my being. It is so crazy. But these people on this school board meeting or who are in the school system, period, they're not going to condemn a book like this. They're not going to condemn a curriculum like this. Because if you do, well, now you're going to get labeled as some anti-whatever or a bigot or a transphobe or a homophobe or something like that. It happens all the time, which is why people don't say much of anything at all, right? We have bred a world full of, lack of a better term, cowards. It's either people who succumb to a system to avoid being labeled as something that is unfavorable in their eyes, or is people who genuinely feel a certain type of way, but they just don't say anything because they don't want to deal with the backlash that's going to come from it. Like involving kids in sexuality, I feel as though it's common sense that is a really, really big no-no because those two don't mix, and then we live in a world full of pedophiles who are ideally punished when they are trying to interact with kids in a sexual way. But now it has infiltrated everything. It has infiltrated schools. It's infiltrated the government. It's infiltrated businesses, retail stores, where they're like glorifying the sexualization of children. And it's the weirdest thing to me. But it all goes back to how I kind of describe, like if you give Dylan Mulvaney Woman of the Year, which that individual just won Woman of the Year. At the end of the day, it's your life. I don't really give a damn what it is that you do. But when I analyze what it is that you are doing, if it does come across my face for whatever reason, when I look at it, I'm like, well, this just seems like a person who was incompetent as a male/man who wanted to Trojan horse his or her or whatever's way into a space that this individual felt they could succeed in better. That's what it seems like to me. So when you look at these pedophiles now, and it's hard to label them that because they all got suits on now and they all have some government title next to their name, or they're a part of a school board, right? So it's harder to identify them, but no, they're there. If you feel incompetent in your own life, if you feel like you're not accomplishing what you want to, or you feel as though there's more out there to get and it's just never enough, well, who's very, very vulnerable and who can you take advantage of? You can take advantage of children, right? Because they're real impressionable, and especially in an environment like school where parents send their kids to school and then they leave for 8 hours. So they're not watching their kids and what it is that's going on. That's ground zero to take advantage of them, to move in whatever agenda that you want on a base that's a lot easier to be accepted in, on a base that's a lot easier to take advantage of, right? Either one. You're still moving in and doing some effed up stuff. So it's wild, the world that we live in. And this isn't like the first time I've seen something like this. It's just the most recent one. But the fact that it's even a reality is so crazy to me. And then people, like I said, they try to follow protocol and they got to play it by the book. Oh, you're not allowed to say that in here. Please watch your language. Your time is up. All this like stupid stuff. Like we can't talk like we're normal humans, right? And see the stupidity in this is that you won't allow me to say it here amongst other adults, but children are allowed to read this. Children are allowed to consume this. It doesn't make sense, but that's the world that we live in now. None of this makes sense anymore. None of it at all whatsoever. Like the adults in this country, they're divided on everything. They're extremely confusing. They are difficult to deal with because we can't really like get along. We can't really coexist. But at the end of the day, those are problems for the adults. Like kids should stay out of it, but like these other adults, these other weirdos keep bringing them into the fold in everything now, and it's creating even more problems because it's like any parameters on society. The last few that were remaining, because the rest of them have all gone to hell. They're gone. They don't exist anymore. Everything is just chaotic, and people are just doing literally whatever the hell it is that they want to do. Literally, right? So the last few that we had, they're just like slowly going away, right? So the whole like kids are off limits, when it comes to really anything. Just let them be kids, fostering an environment in which they can be kids, that's starting to fade away. And they're being warped into this adult world, and they haven't even made it there yet. It's the weirdest thing to me. And it's crazy that this is the direction that the world is going. it's optimistic to see parents and other adults getting pissed off at it and speaking up about it, but it feels like everything else in this country, right? It's somehow this, right? A topic such as this is divided. Every issue that we deal with is essentially divided down the middle. And it's wild that this is one of them as well. Because yeah, you'll have your people who are outraged, but then you got your other half who try to defend the sexualization of children by asserting that those who do not participate in such an activity are some type of bigot, or they have some type of phobia toward a certain group of people, right? That's their fail-safe to make it seem like what they're doing is virtuous and moral, and that whoever opposes it, they're immoral and they have no virtues in this regard. And I think it's pretty simple of a concept to leave children out of like situations like these, you know? I mean, that's just my perspective. I don't know what the hell is going on in the world where that is such a hard thing to do, but I guess it's necessary to reiterate because people are losing their effing minds, is to leave kids out of it. This is not a children's topic. It's not. Unless you are a pervert, then you make it a children's topic, and now you are ousting yourself as a pervert. But because we live in a country that celebrates perverts and accepts perverts, it's hard to identify the perverts, but then when you identify the perverts, it's hard to punish them in their perverted ways. You see, the problem is that this is not okay. And the fact that a meeting has to be called to make that known is really, really concerning. So hopefully more parents and, God help us, teachers, and I mean, I have even less confidence in this one, but politicians, hopefully more like speak up about this and like take action. Because, I mean, this is it. You know, this is the last barrier of common sense and normalcy that we have before literally everything that is or was universally accepted has just been thrown out the window. So if this is something that is present in a school or in any other environment that houses kids, make it be known that this is not okay, because it's not okay. It's just not, you know. Like I said, I get that the world is changing, but this is not a direction that the world needs to move into, right? Like we're already dealing with so many issues. Let's just leave the kids out of it because they're kids, right? And adults, we're supposed to foster an environment in which they can be just that, kids. So for the love of God, leave the kids out of it.